Hi, I'm Stephen Cuomo, founder and executive producer of Santa Fe Fashion Week. I produce fashion shows, I sell clothing on eBay, I produce fashion blogs, and I want to do for fashion what Anthony Bourdain did for food. So welcome back to Santa Fe Fashion Week's YouTube channel, and we're going to talk all things fashion with Ezra Estes. And so Ezra, what restaurant are we here at Santa Fe?
We are at La Choza.
La Choza, cool. Does that mean anything?
La Choza means the shed. So the Carswells, the people that own the shed, started this business as a second restaurant. So they thought they would call it La Choza instead of the shed.
Nice. And as of a few days, we're allowed to go maskless, which is kind of nice. So I'm kind of digging that. So let's talk a little bit about fashion school and the benefit of going to fashion school for people that are thinking about going to fashion school.
There are a lot of advantages. One, a lot of people think they can do fashion without really having any formal training. And here comes the important part, the margarita. And so getting a formal training in fashion actually is a huge advantage because it will teach you to do proper illustration. And of course, construction is very important. You can learn construction without going to school, but going to school will get you up to speed a lot faster than trying to learn it on your own. Not only that, but there's an awful lot of bad information on YouTube. Don't do it.
Don't do it. Other than our channel. But yeah, I remember going to school one time and about textiles and different fabrics that can actually catch on fire if you're ironing and stuff like that. Can you delve into that a little bit?
Those are very important things because I think we all at one point or another have overheated a garment and left a big brown iron print, or worse yet, melted it straight through the fabric and have all this goop stuck to the bottom of the iron. And those are things to learn because nylon has a very low melt point, and you will burn it and you'll go right through the fabric. And then of course, there are very particular things like flammability of fabric. There are lots of laws. If you make PJs for little kids and some little kid catches on fire, you're in big trouble. You're probably going to go to prison for it because it is a felony. So you have to know some of these things and know where we're headed. I've seen people use upholstery fabrics for jackets because it kind of looked cool. The big problem with that is most upholstery fabrics are treated for stain proofing, and so they have a tendency to resist absorbing any moisture. And you can kind of imagine it would be something like wearing a trash bag because it won't absorb moisture when you perspire. So there's lots of these little fussy things. Hydrophilic, hydrophobic fabrics. It's not saying that synthetics are always bad. I have had people that had wanted to put beautiful silk shears in windows and homes, and it's a terrible idea because silk is extremely prone to sun rot. And so, yes, taking a textile course is always something very handy so that you know where textiles are appropriate to apply and where they work best. So,
cool. So let's talk about going from concept to manufacturing and the business of fashion.
That's a tough one. Ooh. You didn't put enough tequila in there.
I like it.
Wow. There's a real problem with designers in that they work and they work and they work and then they finally get discovered and Bergdorf Goodman or somebody picks them up and then they don't really know how to get that product manufactured on time. It doesn't get delivered on time. Bergdorf rejects the offer. And then you're bankrupt. And that's a cycle that happens with designers.
So let's pause right there. So I'm going to Magic in August. To do Magic back in person again. And the process of going Magic is there's designers there, they rent a booth, there's buyers there, hopefully they decide to buy your collection. And so take us from that point where, yeah, you got to Magic, you raised the money, you have your lookbook, you have some samples. Buyer comes in, says I have a dozen boutiques throughout the Southwest. Now where do we go from there?
Oh, that's a good one. And because of that cycle of bust, boom, bust, the Council of Fashion Designers of America actually has a fashion incubator right in the Garment District in New York City. And they have 12 stalls where they take up-and-coming, promising designers. They have an MBA, accountant, secretary, all these people, odd staff that are right at the front of the building that service all 12 designers. And so what they are effectively doing is holding their hand and guiding them through that process to make sure that once they get that order that they're successful in their delivering and getting the product on time where they can get paid. And it's a very important cycle. So the Council of Fashion Designers of America has done a really good job with mentoring young people.
Well, that brings up an interesting point. So I've been having conversations with some people at the Council of Fashion Design, and they're reaching out to regional fashion weeks and trying to understand like where regional fashion weeks fit into the marketing side of fashion. And then also I did a vlog recently, I'll put a link below, about what I'm launching Fashion Behind the Curtain and having a more consistent fashion shows throughout the country. And so what's your thoughts on fashion shows and marketing? So it's interesting. So I went to Magic, and some designers feel like it's the job of the boutique to market their collection. Like, okay, I have your stuff in my store, now you go sell it. And then some boutiques think, no, designers, be like a Michael Kors or Steve Madden or something like that. It's like, okay, my stuff's available now at these boutiques. So
I have a red chili enchilada.
Yeah, we can pause it. So lunch was great. We didn't want to have to film that. But
Yes.
it was very yummy.
It's delicious.
We give the restaurant 5 stars. So before we cut off, we were talking about whose job, when you have a buyer buys a collection for their boutiques, and a lot of times people think buyers have to be like big department stores, but some people own several boutiques. And so whose job is it to market the fashion? Is it I'll put it this way. So I know a lady in Nob Hill, when she goes to Magic, she buys stuff from designers that have big Instagram followers. So that designer can put on Instagram, hey, my clothing is available in Albuquerque, Nob Hill. So with that said, whose job do you think it is to market the clothing?
A lot of that depends on where the designer is. There are designers that will do their own marketing. I do my own. But then you will also have, like large design firms like the labels like Kors and Ralph Lauren, where they actually have advertising teams. They actually have professionals that take care of all of that individually. And so a lot of it depends on the size of the designer. Now, you can also have a group of small designers that all get together and they will hire a single advertising person that works for the entire team. So they may work for a dozen different designers and doing small advertising campaigns for them and get them in magazines. And so it's it depends. It's like, within a painter, it is generally the gallery's responsibility to get that marketing out there. That's not always the case. My friend Bill Cody does his own marketing. He puts a lot of stuff on Facebook, and he does sell it. So it depends.
Right. Well, so what's interesting too is, some labels and some firms they have sellers reps, right? So the reps will they'll go directly to the department stores, the boutiques, and they actually sell directly to the stores, right?
Correct.
And so that's the thing is, I think if you're just an emerging designer and you just went to school and you're not, let's say you got some designer chops, and you work at the manufacturer, but then you have to be the salesman too, right? I mean,
That is frequently the case. That's what I say. I do my own.
Right.
And I've always done my own, but I've been self-employed for 30 years. And so a lot of that is a reputation thing. But when I first got going, I literally would walk into stores with my product and rep it myself and get it out there. And so it depends again. It took me a little while to get going, but the first year I was in business, I was in the black. It wasn't by much, 20 or 25,000, I think.
Right.
But being $25,000 in the black is a whole lot better than 25,000 in the red.
No, for sure. For sure. For sure. So let's talk about manufacturing, what happened with the virus, and A lot of manufacturing came to a screaming halt, in China. Let's talk about manufacturing in the States compared to manufacturing overseas.
It's actually starting to come back this way. I think a lot of people really got fed up with the way that China was conducting business. Louis Vuitton was actually having it made in China, and then would have the hang tags and labels put on in France, and so they were fudging on that just a little bit and saying final assembly in France. That's what you did. You hung a label on it.
Yeah.
And so they learned the hard way because I think it was 500 meters of their famous painted canvas just disappeared one day.
Wow.
The Chinese manufacturers stole that roll of fabric and sold it on the black market. And I started seeing it come into my shop. I had a lady that had me making pet carriers out of it because Louis Vuitton only had one little pet carrier and it wasn't much more. And so they learned the hard way. But you could say the same thing about Loro Piana's cashmere. They were manufacturing in Stamford, Connecticut, and they ended up closing that factory and pulling everything back to Italy. And so pretty much all the cashmere is still collected in China, but it's baled in China and sent to Europe for milling. So it's that same thing. Manufacturing is it's back and forth. China's becoming a more expensive place to actually manufacture, so more and more of the manufacturing is moving to Southeast Asia. And so you're seeing more Vietnamese, Cambodian, and Thai manufacturing. At the same time, there are more and more boutique manufacturers that are starting to come back to the U.S. So believe it or not, one of the more popular courses here in the United States is production sewing. You can actually get a job stitching in a factory now because of little niche companies that are saying they've had enough with trying to manufacture in foreign lands. I tried it for a little bit. I never did manufacture in China, but I did manufacture in Thailand for a while. And at a point you realize that there's not really a financial advantage. The cost of shipping things back and forth, duties and taxes are very expensive, and so at a point, bring it back to the States and get it knocked out here.
Well, I had a friend in Henderson, Nevada, that this company did quality control. So things would come off the barges or the ships, whatever, in California. They would get trained into Nevada, and they would go across and make sure the zipper was on the right side, the buttons were on the right side, the sewing. And at that point, if it wasn't right, that company would actually resew it. You had to make a decision: is it cheaper to send it back to China and lose all that time, or fix it in the States? Yep. So if you're doing it in the States, at least this way, maybe you keep a better finger on it.
Yeah, because if you have it made in the garment district in LA and there's something wrong with it, it's not hard to drive a few trunks full of clothing back to LA and say, you guys got to hit this again. And if you have an American manufacturer, their reputation is everything, and they generally will pull it in and get it knocked out really fast and get it back to you. So there are more and more advantages to just doing it here. As an example, believe it or not, it takes about 12 minutes to make a pair of jeans in a factory. If it's 12 minutes, why are we manufacturing overseas at all? You know, so it's $15 an hour. You can make 5 pairs of jeans in 1 hour. That's $3 for a pair of jeans for manufacturing in the U.S. What are you going to save going to China?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, you're going to get it done for $1 instead of $3.
It's negligible at best.
Yeah, it's nuts, and so more and more people are realizing that they're doing more and more work here in the U.S., and I'm glad to see it happening.
Well, Ezra, we appreciate your input. Hopefully we'll do this again, and hopefully the audio is okay because it's so loud in here. Love all of you, and thank you for subscribing to our channel.
And I love you more.
And I love you more. And we're